In the ever-changing whirlwind of the internet age, media, and its interaction with us, is evolving at a blistering pace. Amidst this transformation, a thrilling battle rages on, an arms race between technology titans and boundary-pushing artists. Governments grapple to regulate this mesmerizing fusion of creativity and adult content, while society at large stands both appalled and intrigued by its existence. Welcome to the forefront of an extraordinary digital revolution. All of this is a story not often told. This is hentai as we know it. So to put this in context, 40 years ago, if I wanted material to add to my spank bank, I would go to the local movie theater. Now, at the risk of outing myself as a pervert, I am going to spend a bit of time elaborating on that statement. It's 1973, and Tokyo is home to Kintaro, a frustrated Japanese salaryman living a celibate life since his in-laws invaded his bedroom like an unwelcome hurricane. One fateful night, overcome by a heady mix of sexual frustration and in-law loathing, Kintaro stumbles out of a bar, seeking solace in his favorite spot, the local erotic movie theater. Clutching a sweaty 100-yen bill, he settles into the back seat, popcorn in hand, ready to be mesmerized by the unfolding spectacle on the massive 50-foot screen in front of him. The next 90 minutes are life-changing, to say the least. He squirms and contorts in his seat, torn between the urge to satisfy his immediate needs and the fear of being arrested for public indecency. His father-in-law's disappointed face haunts him, and the jive is gone. He stumbles home and sheds tears into a box of tissues in the downstairs bathroom. Needless to say, this experience was far from ideal. Back in those days, if you wanted adult video entertainment, a dingy movie theater was your only option, unless you were up for building a home theater of your own. Meanwhile, the booming industry of pornographic print media was also gaining momentum, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Because in the late 70s, an erotic renaissance was brewing just around the corner. This golden age sprang forth from an unlikely place, the Japanese consumer electronics industry, particularly the rise of affordable video cassette recorders. With the advent of Japan's video rental industry in 1977 and the widespread ownership of VCRs in the early 1980s, adult films on home video formats spread like wildfire. It didn't stop there. Portable video cameras made filming porn affordable, democratizing the production process and further accelerating the proliferation of home video formats. As VHS and beta tape porn releases proliferated and skyrocketed in popularity, erotic movie theaters suffered a fatal blow. In 1984, the Japanese government's censorship laws tightened the noose around theatrically released pornography, dealing a significant hit to the industry. The once thriving theaters dwindled into obscurity, and the notion of watching porn in public places, for better or worse, gradually faded away. And this leads us into the 1980s marked a pivotal era when home video releases became the primary form of adult cinematic entertainment in Japan. But what's intriguing is how the government censorship regulations interacted with the larger adult film industry and how quickly the industry adapted to these changes. While early VCRs were gaining in popularity in the 1980s, it wasn't until 1984, when those regulations came in to shut down pink theaters, that everything really started to catch steam. At this juncture, the anime industry was experiencing the OVA boom. Until then, anime had primarily been distributed through broadcast TV or theatrical releases, which were strictly regulated to avoid obscenity and immorality. Enter VHS as a new distribution method for the animation studios, and the creative juices flowed forth. The freedom offered by home video compared to TV broadcasts led to fascinating, and yes, explicit, projects. This was the era when hentai truly came into its own as a medium. For the uninitiated, OVAs were direct-to-home video releases, sold through mail-order catalogs, or distributed to Japan's growing network of video rental stores. Unlike theatrical releases or TV broadcasts, OVAs had varying lengths, catering to each individual creator's specific vision or goal. These OVAs could clock in at an hour, filling a standard play VHS tape or single-sided laserdisc at 23 minutes, or they could just be 5 minutes long. The only thing that really mattered was whether people were buying them. The 1980s and the 90s saw a burgeoning demand for adult content in Japan thanks to the ease of access provided by VCRs and the booming OVA market. As the boundaries of creativity were pushed, hentai found a growing audience, both domestically and internationally. So let's look at some of the key moments that shaped the current adult entertainment industry in Japan domestically. Amidst Japan's economic prosperity in the 1980s, advancements in animation technology granted creators more accessible and affordable tools to produce high-quality content beyond the confines of traditional TV broadcasting. At the vanguard of the OVA boom, Cream Lemon emerged as a trailblazer in 1984. This anthology series delved into various erotic scenarios, introducing viewers to a realm of animated sensuality previously unexplored. The success of Cream Lemon proved the viability of adult animation and paved the way for future hentai OVAs that pushed boundaries with unbridled audacity. And speaking of pushing boundaries, in 1987, a true icon of hentai history was born. Hideki Takayama's magnum opus, Urutsuki Doji, or Legend of the Overfeed. This OVA combined explicit sexual content with elements of horror and the occult. In a whirlwind of tentacles and carnal chaos, Urutsuki Doji shocked and mesmerized audiences worldwide, further cementing hentai's status as a genre with a pennant for the extraordinary. While technically impressive, it's important to note that Legend of the Overfiend was and still is incredibly depraved. So while an incredible example of artistry in a vacuum, the OVA's violent and sexually explicit scenes sparked concern among politicians and conservative groups at the time. As the tidal wave of hentai swept across Japan, societal reactions were as varied as the colors of the rainbow. On one side, enthusiasts applaud the creative freedom afforded by the OVA boom, appreciating the higher production quality and immersive storytelling found in hentai. On the other, critics raised eyebrows at the explicit content, expressing concerns about its inappropriateness for younger audiences and the potential effects on societal norms. With societal unease mounting, the Japanese government sought to regulate the adult video industry. This would later develop into the Ethics Organization of Computer Software, which established guidelines to govern developers and producers of adult games and animation. Age restrictions and explicit content warnings were among the measures implemented to address ethical concerns. The industry reaction to this was incredibly varied, but very quickly artists were using their creative mettle to collectively edge the Japanese government. Urutsuki Doji really pioneered the tentacle genre, which is a well-known fact among people in the community, but for the sake of covering my bases, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that this was simply a creative attempt at navigating updated censorship laws targeting the OVA industry specifically. See, somewhere along the lines, Japan's government decided that things such as pubic hair and male genitalia specifically were obscene. After patting themselves on the back for a couple months, they realized that they had royally fucked up. See, the Japanese forgot that you could just not draw pubic hair. So suddenly, and without explanation, everyone was clean shaven, and the regulations specifically listed human male genitalia, but they didn't say anything about things shaped like a penis. So suddenly, and without explanation, your friendly neighborhood hentai protagonist had turned into a 12-foot tall demon which could level city blocks with nothing more than a nut. And that is not a joke. In Nightmare Campus, dude nuts so hard, he levels a city suburb. It was incredible. Anyways, some of the more mundane attempts at cuckolding the Japanese parliament through the 1980s leading into the 2000s were as follows. Mosaics and censorship bars. One common method that was developed during this time was the use of mosaic or pixelation to obscure genitalia or explicit acts. This was made possible by recent advancements in video editing technology. By applying mosaics to sensitive areas, creators complied with the law's requirements of obscuring explicit content while still conveying the intended action. Shows like Bible Black and Immorality used mosaic censorship extensively to adhere to regulations. Creators would also often employ clever storytelling techniques to imply explicit content without directly showing it, by using suggestive dialogue, audio cue, creative angles, stand-in bananas. They can create the illusion of explicit content without breaching the censorship laws. The OVA Night Shift Nurses is an example of a show that utilized storytelling to suggest explicit content without outright showing it. For people looking to share their favorite hentai with a wider audience, fan-edited versions ended up becoming the norm. In some cases, hentai OVAs have been fan-edited, and those edits remove explicit content or replace it with less explicit scenes. These edited versions allow hentai to reach a wider audience, especially those who may prefer a more softened approach. However, they also cater to international markets with stricter regulations on pornography in general. Multiple editions. Some hentai OVAs offered multiple editions, catering to different audiences. A standard edition might comply with Japanese regulations, while the international or uncensored edition may feature explicit content for foreign markets. This strategy helps creators meet the demands of various regions while expanding their reach globally. The international VHS releases of Urutsuki Doji, Nightmare Campus, and many other OVAs were uncensored, so the English versions are actually the go-to from a media preservation standpoint if you're looking to go that route. And fun fact, last time I checked, you can still buy Nightmare Campus DVDs through a third-party seller on Walmart's website, just saying. There were also all-ages adaptations. Some hentai OVAs have had all-ages adaptations that tone down or remove explicit content, allowing them to be sold to a broader audience. These adaptations often omit or modify scenes to adhere to regulations without compromising the central narrative. A lot of visual novel adaptations also fall into this camp, specifically, since many of them are based around eroge games, and the anime adaptations will just simply remove the sex scenes and focus on the more romantic elements of the story. When we look back on the OVA boom of the 80s and 90s, we see a fascinating chapter in Japan's animation journey. The era of creative freedom and daring experimentation birthed a genre that provoked, stimulated, and challenged societal norms. While hentai existed in various forms prior to the 70s and 80s, this was the time period when it really got its wings, and it left a lasting legacy within Japan's animation landscape. Many anime studios and industry giants that exist today can trace their roots back to projects that were made during this time. Now, the OVA boom is cool and all, but there was a lot more going on at this time than just the big official releases. See, even prior to the OVA boom, a quiet revolution was brewing, just beneath the surface. A subversive subculture that would reshape the manga landscape forever. Dojinshi. So, let's rewind a bit and get back to 1975. Another pivotal aspect of hentai's evolution was the rise of Dojin culture. Dojinshi refers to self-published works, and in the context of hentai, it involves amateur creators crafting their adult manga, games, or other media. The Dojin scene has become a breeding ground for creative expression, allowing artists to explore explicit themes and push boundaries that might not be possible in mainstream media or even inside of something like the OVA space. This movement emerged in the 1970s, fueled by the creative industry and devotion of manga enthusiasts turned fledgling artists. The 1970s witnessed a burgeoning manga fandom in Japan, as the popularity of manga series like Astro Boy, Tiger Mask, and Gogol 13 Sword, so did the passion of their respective fan bases. These enthusiasts eagerly sought ways to express their admiration for the characters and stories they held dear. In this hot, steamy cauldron of manga passion, something extraordinary began to take shape: Dojin. The driving force behind the rise of Dojinshi culture was the freedom it provided to fans turned creators. These aspiring artists could reimagine characters, explore alternative storylines, and delve into untold adventures, mostly involving their favorite character getting pegged, but I digress. Within the Dojinshi realm, artistic expression knew no bounds, and creators reveled in the joy of bringing their unique visions to life. Dojinshi found its earliest home within small fan circles. These groups of like-minded enthusiasts would gather at events, comic markets, or through fan clubs to share and exchange their Dojin creations. Initially, the circulation of Dojinshi remained relatively underground, with fans seeking out their favorite artists' latest work within these close-knit communities. As the popularity of Dojinshi culture grew, a pivotal moment emerged with the advent of Comicat in 1975. This event, organized by the Comic Market Preparation Committee, was envisioned as a platform for amateur manga artists to showcase and sell their Dojin works. Comicat's inaugural event drew around 700 attendees, but it soon exploded in size and scope. Comicat evolved into the world's largest and most influential Dojin convention. Held biannually in Tokyo, it became a mecca for manga enthusiasts, Dojin artists, and industry professionals alike. By the early 2000s, Comicat had welcomed over 500,000 attendees, with thousands of artists coming every year to showcase their work. The legacy of Dojinshi culture continues to thrive and evolve throughout the 21st century, and Dojin artists have become instrumental in shaping popular manga trends and cultivating a diverse and inclusive manga fandom. Events like Comicat have become a haven for Dojin artists, attracting thousands of fans eager to support and acquire their works. As the culture grew, so did the influence of Dojinshi on the broader hentai industry. Many professional manga and anime artists started their careers in Dojin circle. This includes names like Hirohiko Araki, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and Ken Akumatsu, Love Hina, who successfully transitioned from amateur circles to professional mangaka, illustrating Dojinshi's potential as a stone to mainstream recognition. This leads us to the next chapter in hentai history. See, some of the Dojin creators throughout the years would find themselves more comfortable behind a keyboard rather than a pen and paper. Over time, this would turn into the eroge boom. The early erotic game industry in Japan began to take shape in the 1980s. Very similar to the OVA boom, it rode the wave of technological advancements and evolving consumer markets. This burgeoning sector, often referred to as eroge, played a pivotal role in shaping Japan's gaming landscape and had a profound impact on both the gaming industry and the societal perceptions of adult content. The roots of the eroge industry can be traced back to the early 1980s, when the proliferation of home computers such as the NEC PC 8801 and the MSX provided a platform for game developers to create more sophisticated and interactive experiences. The These computers allowed for the storage of visual and textual data, enabling the development of early erotic games. One key moment in this era was the release of Nightlife in 1982. A text-based adventure game developed by Koei, it allowed players to engage in virtual romantic encounters, setting the stage for the exploration of adult themes in gaming. The mid-1980s witnessed another significant moment in the eroge industry when the release of Tenshitachi no Go-Go, Afternoon with Angels, in 1985. Developed by the Elf Corporation. This visual novel featured captivating artwork, branching narratives, and romantic interactions. The success of Tenshitachi no Go-Go propelled the visual novel genre to new heights and set precedent for eroge as a narrative-driven gaming experience. Danshizuma no Nuaku, in 1983, also developed by Elf, was a significant step forward for erotic games. It featured explicit visual elements and marked the beginning of using pixel art to depict adult content. In the late 1980s, another milestone title from Elf emerged, Dragon Knight, which combined role-playing games with adult content. The game's success not only expanded the scope of eroge gameplay, but also appealed to a wider audience, including RPG enthusiasts. The early 1990s witnessed a leap in technological capabilities, allowing eroge developers to incorporate multimedia elements. In 1992, the release of Three Sisters Story by Just USA showcased fully voiced characters, animated scenes, and branching storylines, heightening the immersive experience of eroge. As the eroge industry evolved, some titles garnered attention beyond Japan's borders. True Love, released also by Just USA in 1995, featured an English localization, opening doors to the global market and introducing international players to the world of eroge. Around this time, CD-ROM technology and full-motion video allowed erotic games to include higher quality visuals, voice acting, and more immersive experiences. Games like Viper V6 Turbo in 1994 utilized some of these advancements. Tokimeki Memorial, which ran from 1994 to 2009, while not an erotic game, was a groundbreaking dating sim that further popularized the visual novel format. Its success demonstrated the potential of storytelling and character-driven gameplay inside the gaming industry, and influenced the development of future erotic visual novels. The emergence and growth of Japan's early eroge industry had a profound impact on both the gaming landscape and societal attitudes towards adult content. Eroge played a pioneering role in interactive storytelling within the gaming world. The inclusion of romantic and adult themes allowed for more nuanced narratives and deeper player engagement, influencing subsequent game genres and narrative-driven experiences. As eroge gained prominence, it also faced challenges from regulatory bodies and conservative factions within Japanese society. Concerns about the impact of adult content on young audiences led to discussions about age restrictions and content regulations. While many eroge were little more than interactive porn slideshows, some early developers in the dating sim genre pushed the boundaries of creativity in game design. The inclusion of multimedia elements, branching narratives, and interactive romance resulted in the dating sim genre making many firsts for the gaming industry as a whole. Now, throughout this journey, the formats eroge was released on would range from digital tape media and floppy disks in the 80s to the eventual rise of CD-ROMs in the 90s. These physical media releases still continue to this day. While these physical releases are more of a novelty today, at the turn of the millennium, they were a necessity. The internet at that point was still too slow to send more than a picture or two at a time, so it wouldn't be until later in the 2000s when the wider effects of the internet would be felt by the adult entertainment industry. This awkward transitionary period is what I would call the DVD era. DVD is a weird one. Now, a lot was going on during this time when DVD showed up as the awkward middle child to the family of video formats. See, despite DVDs being digital, technical and legal limitations meant that the video contained within them needed to be compatible with analog video standards. This presents a lot of issues for video encoders in the current day, but back then it was actually the cat's ass. Anything you could put on a VHS or Laserdisc player could get burnt straight to disc and resold as a DVD release. This led to a flood of older hentai getting the DVD treatment. Some releases were pretty bad, since properly transferring analog video to DVD requires a lot of technical know-how, but overall it was a positive for the industry. The transition from VHS to DVD was like a breath of fresh air for hentai enthusiasts. DVD provided crisp, clear visuals and enhanced sound quality, which was comparable to the larger and much more expensive Laserdiscs. One of the DVD's most significant advantages was its expanded running length. DVDs could utilize digital compression, which would allow for hours of video to be crammed on a single disc if necessary, allowing hentai producers to include longer episodes, bonus content, and even multiple episodes on a single disc. With the space left over, producers could include previously censored or extended scenes, bonus features, commentary, and art galleries. And while DVD bonus features might seem a little passé today, back in the day this was a pretty big leap forward, and it was all quite novel at the time. In the mid-2000s, DVD passed VHS as the dominant format for home video in Japan, with the market penetration reaching around 60% in 2006. But as DVDs grew in popularity, so did the studio's desire to reach out to a global audience. Subtitles and dubbing options in multiple languages made anime, and more specifically hentai, more accessible to international fans. DVDs were also smaller and easier to ship than tape was. Now, while the early internet wasn't fast enough for streaming hentai, it was certainly fast enough to buy it. This is where online distribution companies like Right Stuf really started to pick up steam. There were a lot of new projects during this time, and this was when hentai really pushed into the international market. There were many new projects that were launched during this time, but for the most part, DVD's claim to fame was just the sheer backlog of analog hentai that ended up being brought into digital formats through the release of these new DVDs, especially for the international market. Blu-rays would quickly come to replace the DVD as the de facto physical standard, and requirements to maintain analog video standards were removed in the late 2000s. This released Blu-ray from having to worry about being backwards compatible with analog video formats. But the DVD was still an important step in the transition to fully digital video distribution. And this leads us to the 2000s witnessed the advent of high-speed internet, which became a game changer for the hentai industry. Online streaming platforms emerged, providing an easy and discreet way for fans to access hentai content from the comfort of their own homes. Websites like Hentai Haven and Faku gained popularity, offering unlimited access to vast libraries of erotic material. Japan's Dojin conventions, like Comicat, also hopped onto the digital bandwagon in the 2000s with the rise of online doujinshi distribution platforms. Creators could reach a much wider audience without the limitations of physical publication. This digital shift empowered creators, including those in the hentai genre, to gain greater visibility and monetize their works. The online platforms enabled independent artists to showcase their talent and connect directly with fans, creating a thriving ecosystem of creative expression. As the hentai industry flourished online, it also faced challenges concerning copyright infringement and piracy. Unlicensed distribution and unauthorized usage of content posed threats to both creators and legitimate distributors. And if we're being honest, when's the last time either of us actually paid to watch porn? The internet's accessibility and anonymity played a role in shifting cultural attitudes towards hentai. The genre, once considered taboo, while still pretty weird, began to gain more acceptance and discussion among mainstream audiences. Read anything by Gaguk or The Anime Man. As hentai became more visible on the internet, discussions surrounding adult content, censorship, and freedom of expression became more prevalent in society. The industry's growing prominence leads to debate about its societal impact and how we should regulate it. The internet's influence on Japan's hentai industry during the 2000s marked a significant turning point in its history. Online streaming, digital distribution, and interactive platforms reshaped the landscape, expanding hentai's reach and cultural influence. As the digital legacy continues to evolve, the hentai genre remains an integral part of Japan's entertainment scene, embracing new opportunities while navigating challenges in the ever-changing world of government censorship. The internet's accessibility meant that fans no longer needed to visit seedy shops or sit in crusty theaters to indulge in their desires. Despite all of the problematic issues with piracy, copyright, and international porn laws, the internet still played a crucial role in the globalization of adult content from Japan. All of that leads us to the present day, where we're looking at another paradigm shift moving towards AI and virtual reality, which is once again upheaving the adult media landscape as we know it. And over the next 10 years, we're going to see what that turns into. But that's a video for another time, as getting into the weeds on that one would take a lot. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making it, obviously, or else I wouldn't have. But I just wanted to present this information as it was, because I feel like a lot of conversations about hentai are very reductive, to say the least. A lot of, oh, Japan's so crazy, hentai's so quirky, what, tentacles, ooh woo, like, kill me. It just makes me cringe, because there's so much more here than just Japan being weird. Like, there's a reason for this stuff, and a lot of it has to do with, you know, artists fighting through legal red tape, and, you know, the technologies constantly shifting and updating, and how people interact with this stuff. Japanese sociology and society plays a big role in all of this, which isn't really something that I talked about, because I could remake this video just from the perspective of, you know, like, I don't know, how Japanese work culture has affected people's pornography habits, and how the lost decade after the OVA boom led to Japan's current work and social culture, which is making a lot of people around my age voluntarily celibate. And how is that voluntary celibacy pushing the VR porn landscape forward, as people continually look to fictional characters as surrogates for actual relationships? There's a lot of really interesting stuff going on there. There's the parasocial movements with, like, the uprise of sexy VTubers. A lot of cool stuff that's going on, I guess. Like, but it's all very real and very human, and there's reasons for it. So I suppose at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is that, you know, if you're new to this kind of thing, it might seem like one day you woke up and hentai was everywhere all the time, but it was just the natural progression of things, and kind of moving forward. It's very important that we don't lose perspective on where we came from and how things kind of ended up coming about. But yeah, my camera light just died. That's how long I've been recording this for, so I think that's my cue to leave. And yeah, until next time, this was the Smuggler, signing off.